Hi. I don't know if you will personally find this useful, but I think you should know. Trauma. It is described as a distressing or disturbing experience. In this context, of course. Such experiences can lead to many outcomes. Some will recover, and it can all seem solely as an event from the past. But for others, it is much deeper than that. Today, in this first episode, we want to share a bit about PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, as defined by the Mayo Clinic, is a disorder where a person has difficulty recovering after experiencing trauma. You might know that triggers are a hallmark of PTSD. They can bring back memories of the trauma and be accompanied by intense emotional and physical reactions.
Okay, so my full name is Jomalier Viera-Martinez. I'm a training instructor for my unit. So all the new people that come in, I take them through a 3-week course, teach them everything that they need to know. And then also people that need sustainment training that have been with us already. So yeah, that's what I do.
The main focus of this segment is basically post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I'm going to ask of you is, what is your experience with it?
So I've had it for a couple of years. I never really understood PTSD because what does PTSD look like, you know? So it was just one of those things that I dealt with for a very long time. Didn't really realize that I had it, ignored it at times, until it kind of got a wake-up call recently, a couple months ago, where I realized I needed to go talk to someone. So some of the main symptoms, some of the more consistent symptoms that I was having was lack of sleep, like eating, like I wouldn't really eat very often, loss of appetite mainly, and flashbacks, right? So certain things that I would see or do would cause me to either have flashbacks, maybe some things that I did throughout the day or that I saw throughout the day would cause me to have relapses and some of those nightmares, and then I would have the nightmares for a few days.
Do you think that there are misconceptions, especially in your area of work, about what PTSD is and how to deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. In the DoD, in the Air Force, in any branch, anything related to the DoD, there are huge misconceptions about PTSD. A lot of people don't realize in the military that PTSD doesn't have to be combat related, right? So I have multiple friends that have PTSD, and none of the causing factors of it were combat related. I have misconceptions of PTSD. It's just such a huge cultural thing in the military, to that when something's wrong, something traumatic happened in your life, whether it's job related or not, to just press on with the issue, and that you'll be fine, right? So typically, especially younger people, never really speak up. They never really say anything, because for one, they either think there's going to be repercussions, right? My job specifically, I arm up every day with a weapon, right? So let's say I go to medical and I tell them that I'm having issues and I'm having nightmares, right? First thing they're going to do, guess what? They're going to take my gun away from me. That's not a problem. So the main misconception, especially in the military, is that if you go get checked out for PTSD and you go talk to a specialist, you're gonna get your weapon taken away and you're gonna be out of the job and potentially get kicked out. That is not the case. Obviously, depending on the severity of the PTSD that you have, but at that point, you need to take care of yourself. And if getting you out of the military is the best route, then that's the best route. I'm now a non-commissioned officer in the United States Air Force, and I have more of a position where I get to oversee a lot more people, right? So they call us the frontline supervisors, right? Because we have that direct contact with the airmen, the junior enlisted members of the Air Force, right? So we see them every day. We know their behavior. We see what they act like. I think that realistically, education, we have all the briefings in the world about PTSD, suicide prevention, resiliency training. I mean, you name it, we have a PowerPoint for it. PowerPoints do nothing. People don't learn from PowerPoints, right? So I think one of the biggest things that the military needs to realize, and just people in general need to realize, is that you, as a frontline supervisor, as someone that has that direct contact with especially younger airmen, is that you need to take your experiences and your knowledge on PTSD, whether you have it or not, and you need to share it with those individuals and take away that stigma that having PTSD is a problem, right? And the alienation that comes with having PTSD, because I felt very alienated and I felt very targeted by leadership. And to be quite honest, it felt pretty shitty, right? So I think that discourages people from seeking help, because the first step to solving the problem is identifying it. And if you don't want to identify it because you see and hear about all these stigmas, you're not going to. So it's better educating those frontline supervisors, speaking up about it, having better open forum, open communication about PTSD, and just really being there for people and exploring those routes so that you take that stigma away from what PTSD is.
You know, there's something that we study a lot, even in the area of research, where people that go through traumatic experiences together tend to create a bond that is even stronger than a bond created by, let's say, spouses.
Yep.
Do you feel like you found that, at least, even if it wasn't with leadership, did you at least find that connection with other people in the military that had PTSD as well?
Not at first. It took some time to be able, for me specifically, me personally, I'm a very close person. Like I keep my business to myself. But once I broke that barrier down, which unfortunately I had to break down by myself, by slowly talking to people that didn't necessarily have PTSD, but once I did, I started meeting people in the military and outside of the military that had PTSD, and it made me, didn't make me feel good, but it made me feel more comfortable, and it kind of just opened my eyes, and it made me realize that I wasn't the only one. And I feel like once I realized that, I started making bonds with other people, and one of the main things that I realized is that a lot of problems that I was having, they were having, right? And one of the strongest bonds that I have with a fellow mentor of mine, that I had no idea he had PTSD. I found out years later, actually recently, a couple of weeks ago. I was giving him a call and talk to him, and the traumatic incident that happened, he was actually there for it. And I realized that he had PTSD years prior to the incident that I had 2-3 years ago. And him talking to me about it, and some of the management tools that he has for it, that he personally developed and that he was given by certified professionals, helped me out a lot. So those bonds that I've developed not only made me feel better, they helped me manage my PTSD a lot better, as long with helping others manage their PTSD and creating those bonds. I've been referred medication before, but I denied it. Not that I'm against people being medicated, and if I can stay away from taking medication, I will. So far so good.
So you just go through therapy sessions essentially?
Yes, I do. I go through the therapy sessions. I have an MFLAC in our unit that I just go to, talk to when I need to, and we see each other at least once a week.
And that's actually really great. And first of all, like, thank you for doing this, because you don't have to.
It feels really good, honestly, because I felt just so entrapped in this experience that I had that was just taking over my life. Like so my best friend, he passed away in a motorcycle accident, right? I couldn't go out and drive on the road and see a motorcycle without literally having to pull over and just like close my eyes and to calm myself down. So it just pissed me off that this incident has so much control over me, and just what the negative effects that it was having on me. And I just decided that, for one, I wasn't gonna let it bother me. And now that I understood PTSD, because I realized that this is a traumatic experience that I had that's having very negative effects on me. I know people that have been through worse. You know what I mean? And it just opened my eyes to the point where, like, people live like this every day and they don't do anything about it because they either don't know any better, or, like I was saying earlier, they're too scared to speak up because of those stigmas. And it's just so sad. So I can only wish that I had more clones that I can put out there so I can spread the word a little bit better. And a lot of the things that we had talked about previously, I've used them because in your area of expertise, I took what I understood and I applied it the best way that I could with some of those conversations that I had with my airmen, because I'm very, very close with my airmen, because I remember being there. I remember being a young 18-year-old in the military, and a new country and a new state that they've never been to, away from their family. Like that in and of itself can be a traumatic experience. Moving out of home, it can literally be as simple as that. And when it goes unchecked, it gets worse. So I'd rather have that close connection with my troops, my subordinates, my superiors. Like it feels good to be able to identify those individuals that have been to experiences like that. And if me just talking to them is fixing the problem, then more power to them for being able to fix it at that level. And a lot of them I refer to professionals and to my specialist, which she's great, so she definitely helps out a lot. But yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Jomalier and I are childhood friends. I received a message from him asking what I knew about PTSD, since he knew I was doing research in neuroscience. During our first conversation, he actually inspired this mini-series. He wanted to understand it, for his and his co-workers and friends' sake. He wanted to be able to inform others on a more scientific level, if you would like to call it that way. Because, after all, psychiatric disorders are like any other bodily condition.
I go out shooting a lot. It's just a pastime, a hobby that I have. And being overseas, we receive contact where obviously we're being shot at. There's grenades and rocket launchers going off. And mainly a lot of those noises, when I go out to the range, when I'm out there, and back when I was in Turkey and I would go out firing. It wouldn't bother me. But when I got back to the States and I'm getting into the mindset like I'm back home, everything's fine, everything's safe over here, and I go out shooting, it's not so much a flashback. It's like I'm back getting shot at, and you know what I mean. Like it's so hard to explain. It's a sound. You don't even have to have your eyes open for it to cause that flashback, for you to feel like you're back in the traumatic situation that you were in, and it just kind of like, it's like your soul leaves your body and goes back to that specific incident, you know.
And do you think that at least you do have good access to resources regarding mental health and so on?
Yes. So I do here. Excuse me. Prior to being stationed here at Barcel, not really, to be honest. But mainly due to the mission that we were doing. Short tours, you're only stationed there for 6 to 12 months, and the resources at places like that are very limited. So, not that the military's medical system it isn't good. It's just a lot of the mission dictates resources, and a lot of the times it sucks. But if you're someone like that and you're having issues like that, you're gonna have a hard time getting proper care, and it sucks. But that was also another factor as to why I had such negative connotations towards PTSD, because when I felt like I was ready to open up, I didn't have an outlet, a professional outlet, right? Even when I was ready to talk, it was just not there for me, right? So after breaking through that myself with some friends, because I didn't break through those barriers by myself, but when I got that professional help, and I realized like, wow, like these people know what they're doing, and now that the resources are there, it just, it broke all those barriers down.
What would be the word of advice you would give someone that's struggling right now?
Speak up, really. Stop letting it eat you alive. You know, just you deserve better. That quality of life that you once had, you can get it back. I promise you. It may seem like it's not gonna get any better, but it does. It does. You just gotta break those barriers one at a time. One at a time. Like a good mentor of mine once told me, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So just take it one bite at a time, one day at a time. Speak up. Seek the professional help that you need. Create those connections, and break those barriers down. And before you know it, you'll be better. That's my word of advice.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Loss. We all suffer loss. But a realization I now have, and many don't comprehend, is that individuals in the armed forces suffer more loss than an average person. In many cases, PTSD can arise from experiences where your life was in danger. However, the major factor, many times, is loss of those we love right in front of us. And that is not always acknowledged.